When the body who makes the laws tells the enforcement body not to enforce the law.
We can solve this problem of family separation if we close these legal loopholes, and that means Democrats coming on board right now this week.
Glad you found what you found, Mr. Horowitz. I'm not buying that the Clinton email investigation was on the up and up.
Of course they had bias, of course they had adverse process, and of course they wanted to do the president in. Now the question is, was it a criminal conspiracy?
The president says he will slap a 10% tax on another $200 billion worth of Chinese goods unless Beijing reverses course.
Look at this. A new Gallup poll. Satisfaction with the U.S. direction now at a 12-year high.
This president, his economic successes are expanding his base. Democrats need to be scared because those numbers are guaranteeing him a second term.
I'm just saying it's fine by me if you never leave, and we can live like this forever. It's fine.
Eddie Grammer. Is that what you say to your kids?
Right.
It's fine by me if you never leave?
Right. No, I'd be fine with that if they at least live close. Right. I mean, yeah. I love them in the area. I think it's good. There was a time in which in America, you always lived near your family, or else you just went to the wilderness. You know, you just
really? To the wilderness. So that's typical New Yorker. You know, if you didn't live in New York, you went out to Kansas, you're in the wilderness.
Right. He went to the wilderness, never saw him again.
You know, fine by me. All right, thank you very much for joining us on this very busy Tuesday. The President of the United States met with a couple of U.S. senators last night. They apparently have come up with some idea on how to get him a down payment on the wall. He's going to be meeting with Republicans tonight. Going forward, there are two bills, the Goodlatte bill and a more moderate bill. Right now up on Capitol Hill, the conventional wisdom is they will not pass. And so now what they're doing is they're taking a look at the big disaster, the big optical story right now, and that is the story at these detention centers where children have been separated from their families, and that's why a number of congressmen and senators have got ideas on how to fix just that right now.
Well, they're going to have to act because everyone, Republicans and Democrats, you see those images. And of course, you have sympathy for those children and for the parents. They're trying to give their kids a better life. But at the same time, you also understand the idea of why the president wants to put up the wall, because we have to make sure everyone who comes into this country is vetted so that MS-13 is not coming in with these moms and these kids and then murdering our kids here, these taxpayers.
Well, it's amazing that these Democrats, in many cases, even though every first lady is wearing it on, people says you shouldn't separate parents and kids. I get that. But now all of this Democrat realizes that there's a problem at the border. Maybe it's a little bit because the Russia investigation is not turning up to everything. The IG reports an embarrassment for the FBI and only backs up the president's story. Maybe it's because the economy is on a roll, or maybe because they're legitimately concerned. You can decide at home, and you can maybe make it the Fox and Friends home game, which we might market. But here's Secretary of Homeland Security Kirstjen Nielsen. She came to answer questions for Sarah Huckabee Sanders because she's this thing called an expert, even though some people in the press were upset that she showed up to answer their questions specifically. Listen.
This entire crisis, just to be clear, is not new. It's been occurring and expanded over many decades. Surely it is the beginning of the unraveling of democracy when the body who makes the laws, instead of changing them, tells the enforcement body not to enforce the law. I asked Congress to ask this week. It's clearly within their power to make the laws and change the laws. They should do so. It's a problem. Let's fix it.
Okay, so now they're building 10 cities. They're converting Walmarts and Kmarts because there's a flood of illegal immigrants coming into our country.
Right.
Maybe the big picture is, if you're working together, what's going on in Ecuador? What's going on in El Salvador? What is going on in all these nations that these people are flooding this direction? You know, one thing about Joe Biden, I remember they dispatched Joe Biden when all these unaccompanied minors came to our border, and they said, guys, you got to stop sending all your people to us. What's going on here? And maybe our long-term is to try to help out those countries to keep their people here at home, at their home.
We need a plan. Her point was there's a zero tolerance policy. It's essentially maximum pressure. We're sending a message. If you're coming to the country illegally, you might get locked up. You might have your children separated from you.
That's the law.
Right.
She just has to follow the law, is what she's saying.
Right. And at the same time, it's maximum pressure on Congress. Do something about it. But like I said, those two bills that are out there, slim to none are probably the chances, and that's why Ted Cruz has come out with a suggestion that he wants to try to do something about these families, these kids, keep them together, more money for shelters. Brian, in about 5 minutes, is going to talk to Mark Meadows. I've heard he's got a bill that's going to come out. It doesn't deal with DACA, does not deal with the wall. In other words, it's very narrow. It deals with these particular children, keeping the families together indefinitely.
Yeah, it says, allow the children to stay with the families indefinitely, but raise the threshold in which you can get here saying, I'm seeking asylum. But Steve, I am somewhat more optimistic than you for the second bill, not the Goodlatte bill, but for the second bill, I'm somewhat more optimistic.
Why is that?
Because I believe that there is some momentum in the House to get it through on a simple majority, because I do think, but I'll have a good idea when Mark Meadows comes forward, because the Freedom Caucus can make or break it.
In the House, but the Senate is the problem. You got to get 60 votes.
But just to get it through the House, that would be one thing. And then you see where we'll be at now in the Senate, because as you mentioned, we got about 6 senators who happen to be Democrats in red states and might be worried about voting against it. But my fear is, in not looking for the best interest of the country, Democrats feel as though they're making traction on this, and they don't want to hurt. They don't want to stop the hurt on the president.
Don't you think, Brian, it would pass if it were just making sure that the kids and the parents can stay together, or sending them to their country and giving them a path to citizenship?
As part of a bigger story.
But that's the problem. Then you start throwing in, Republicans want to throw in chain migration. They want to throw in the lottery system, the wall, and then Democrats won't vote for that.
Right. Just to be clear, before this happened, they had 2 plans pushed by moderates who said, like Will Hurd, who's a Republican, and says, if you do not do something, Paul Ryan, I'm going to team with Democrats, and I'm going to go do a moderate plan that you guys will hate. So they had emergency meetings. Steve Scalise and Steve talked about this, and they said, okay, we got 2 plans. We're going to put it up for a vote. And then this other crisis took place. So now they're saying, let's add to that these other things to solve that problem along with it.
See, I'm just not as confident as you are in those Democrats who now suddenly might vote with the Republicans. They've had chances over the last year and a half. None of that has happened. So, we all know that this is a big problem. We have been talking about the immigration problem in this country as long as this program has been on the air. But now we've got this crisis as well going on down there with these children being separated from their families when it is their family, and something
Well, they can't use those images and be up in arms about it, as we all are, and then not vote for a bill. Because then they're using them to try to win the elections and use these images to try to win the elections. Meanwhile, parents and kids are separated.
And so that's why these lawmakers up on Capitol Hill, and we know that a couple of Republicans are trying to do something, maybe Democrats as well, something more narrow, dealing exactly with this. Will it pass? Stay tuned.
I don't know how many of you out there, it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Many of you have jobs or are listening to us on Sirius Radio right now and could stop and listen to Michael Horowitz and Chris Wray answer questions from the Senate Judiciary Committee. I find after 514 pages, along with an executive summary of 15 pages, it was time for lawmakers to do their reading over the weekend and be prepared to ask questions. I cannot tolerate the speeches or people who want to play politics when there's a legitimate investigation with questions to go over. I thought Mike Lee was fantastic. I thought Senator Lindsey Graham was able to piece it together and press Michael Horowitz on this answer, on this question. It was this: when they referred in these text messages to a plan, an insurance plan, they mentioned Andy. Who is it? Andy McCabe. What did Andy McCabe say when you said, what is this plan? He said he didn't remember. Well, Peter Strzok did remember to Lisa Page. One of them is lying. That's moving an investigation further.
Yeah, and so, there were some great questions, but there weren't such great answers, although this was a stunner. Yeah. Remember when James Comey
violate the rules, the laws. They're going to be finding out.
And the other thing that was just been brought up is if you wanted to create a plan that Donald Trump not get elected, you got to make sure that Hillary Clinton remains the nominee. And maybe that explains why gross negligence was taken out in July. And other words were put in there that reprimanded her but don't have any legal ramifications.
We also learned that one of those unnamed people within the DOJ that was part of this investigation, investigating Hillary Clinton, mind you, was asking Hillary Clinton to get his son or her son a job. and was leaking information to Podesta, who worked for Hillary Clinton.
Right. And remember, this IG report is just about the investigation at the FBI into the Hillary Clinton email investigation. Was it done properly? It's not about the FISA application and what started the Russia collusion investigation. That's going to be on our plate in about a year and a half.
Right. And who knows if Robert Mueller will be done by then.
Hope so.
You know, because
hope so.
Well, some people want that investigation discontinued.
It sounds like it could be done by the end of the summer.
All right,
Fingers
we'll see.
crossed.
Right.
Jillian has some more headlines for us. Hey, Jillian.
That's right. Good morning to you guys, to you at home as well. Let's talk about this dangerous flooding that a lot of the country has experienced. This is in the Midwest. A man was killed when his pickup truck was swept away in Wisconsin. Incredible video showing a road completely destroyed by the storm. A state of emergency underway in parts of Michigan. Flash floods washing away roads, causing dozens of sinkholes. And a hospital evacuating in Rockford, Illinois. Look at that, after downpours flood the building. More rain is on the way across the country. A former CIA employee now charged with leaking classified information, the worst in the agency's history. Joshua Schultz is already in jail on child pornography charges and now facing Espionage Act violations. The feds say Schultz leaked information government hacking tools. Those tools appeared on WikiLeaks last year. Schultz worked for a CIA group that designs computer spy codes. The Supreme Court sidestepping the issue of whether partisan gerrymandering is constitutional. The High Court declining to weigh in on whether GOP lawmakers in Wisconsin and Democratic lawmakers in Maryland unconstitutionally drew overtly political districts. The inaction putting more weight on state races this November, since they will determine which party controls the redistricting process after the 2020 census. And the highly anticipated basketball game between Senator Ted Cruz and Jimmy Kimmel did not disappoint.
The Senator, formerly known as Raphael
The basketball challenge for charity coming after Kimmel poked fun at Cruz for supporting the Houston Rockets. Between baskets, the two discussed, what else? Politics.
Millions of people wouldn't have been angry at Obamacare if it hadn't made the average family's premiums go up $5,000 a year. Well, yeah, but that's just not true. It is true. Those are facts, Jimmy. You voted for Hillary or Bernie? I voted for Hillary. How'd that work out?
Well, in the end, Senator Cruz won the game 11-9. And it looks like he's got some good trash talking skills, too.
I like the way you say between baskets. They were few and far between.
I know.
Right. And it was supposed to be to 15. They cut it off at 11 because it was 2 hours long.
That's great.
All right.
That was terrific. Thank you
Thanks,
for sharing.
All right. Meanwhile, 13 minutes after the hour, what's really happening on the border? We're going to go live with a first-hand account of what it is like to secure the border.
Plus, Richard Painter just unveiled his first Senate campaign ad, and it's setting the internet on fire for no good reasons.
There is an inferno raging in Washington, but here in the land of 10,000 lakes, we know.
Immigration is reaching a boiling point, but what is it really like at the border and inside those facilities?
Griff Jenkins joins us live from McAllen, Texas, with one of the men who is tasked with keeping our borders safe. Morning, Griff.
Good morning, guys. This is essentially ground zero here in McAllen, Texas, the largest Border Patrol processing center in the country. And the Rio Grande River is among the busiest sector. And that is why the chief of this sector, Manuel Padilla Jr., joins us. Chief, the nation has entered a very passionate debate over what is happening here. Why is it happening? And is it accomplishing the goal of securing our border?
Yes, Griff, thank you for being here. I wanted to talk into two areas, border security and immigration. And those two areas present a challenge to us, and they're really in total control of the Congress to do something about. So let me start with border security. The busiest sector along the southwest border is Rio Grande Valley. 40% of all the apprehensions made along the southwest border happen here. 44% of all the marijuana seized happens here in the Rio Grande Valley. Those are just numbers. When you have that level of activity and you have limited personnel, technology, and infrastructure, it creates this chaotic environment. This chaotic environment manifests itself in tractor-trailer loads. It manifests itself in stash houses where people are just crammed in very dilapidated conditions. A lot of sexual abuses, a lot of robbing of people that are being smuggled. Yeah. It also manifests itself in rollovers. Just over the weekend, we had a rollover. 5 people died. 2 months ago.
I want to just quickly get you to the, images of the children, the family separations that are happening. Are the children in here being treated well? There's much debate over that.
Yes. So immigration is the second piece. This facility here, we built this facility in 2014. 2014 was a crisis of unaccompanied children and migrant families, family units together. At that time, we did not have the facilities to deal with this influx, so that's when this facility was built. We're going to walk you through there so you can see the operation inside of this facility.
I can't wait to take a look. Now, quickly, before we run out of time, is there another way? Is it necessary that we separate these families?
So in 2014, 2015, we started detaining families until the point of hearing, because they were at such high levels that we needed to do something about. At that time, when we detained families for the long period until they saw the immigration judge, this started a downward turn or trend in that traffic. So in 2014, these levels were unacceptable. We're going to be reaching those levels absent any action on our behalf.
Wow, Chief, we're running out of time. Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity. Steve, Ainsley, and Brian, the Chief is going to take me. Our cameras can't go, but we're going to go in this facility, and we're also going to go down to the border to see this problem that is exploding. Chief, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Guys,
Griff. Looking forward to that. And want to find out where the kids go. Are they ever reunited with their parents? That kind of thing.
That is the
only
fun
20
part.
days, and they get back with their parents.
All right.
Coming up next, Congressman Mark Meadows.
Headlines for you. President Trump's pick to lead our nation's troops in Afghanistan is heading to Capitol Hill today. Lieutenant General Austin Miller will appear before the Senate Armed Services Committee for a hearing to consider his nomination. If he's confirmed, he'll become the 9th top commander of America's longest war. And in just a few hours, President Trump will welcome in Spain's King Felipe and the Sixth and his Queen Letizia to the White House. The royals heading to Washington after wrapping up visits to San Antonio and to New Orleans, both cities and former Spanish territories celebrating tricentennials. Brian?
All right, I want to bring in Mark Meadows now, key member of the Freedom Caucus. Mark, Congressman, we were going to talk to you just about the IG report and the questions you're going to ask, but you saw what was happening with the separation at the border, and you have a plan to solve it. Can you give us an idea of what's going to be offered today?
Yeah, Brian, we're going to introduce later today a piece of legislation that actually is more narrow than the two pieces that the president will be talking about with members of Congress this afternoon. What it does, it deals with this issue that we're having at the border with the separation of children from their parents. It also deals with some of the asylum issues at the border, but it takes out some of the more controversial issues like sanctuary cities, the wall, DACA, and it keeps it very narrow. 77 pages that focus just on this. Hopefully we can get both Democrats and Republicans to come together and actually solve this problem. We've shared that with the administration, also shared it with our leadership. So hopefully it provides a path forward if the other two bills that we have do not go anywhere.
So you're saying this is a third offer, or those two bills are impervious to this because it's a separate issue, really?
Well, this is a standalone bill, but Brian, one of the things that's not being talked about, this issue of family separation is actually addressed in both of the Republican bills.
Okay.
We actually did that, but this takes away some of the more controversial things that would affect the vote total, and so hopefully we can introduce that today and get some real help.
I know you like the Goodlatte bill. Would you vote for the compromise bill?
You know, we're still reviewing it. Obviously, a lot of that depends on what the president says today. There are some that believe that it's light on enforcement and heavy on amnesty, and so it really is going to be what my constituents back home in North Carolina say. We're putting out surveys to them because really it's not my voting card, it's theirs.
Okay. It's got to be a quick answer. It's going to be a vote for quick. Why are you at the White House?
You know, I've got a meeting later today on foreign policy, so I just happened to be here, and we had this instead of having a Capitol Hill hit. We're here on the White House lawn.
Okay, it's actually cheaper for us, so we're saving money. It's got to be good for the budget. All right, now let's talk about the IG report. You're going to have a chance to ask questions today. 70 lawmakers will. What did you glean from the Senate Judiciary hearing that might alter what you asked today?
Well, I mean, obviously they hit on some of the issues, but really the questions that I have, Brian, are very different. Why were there two standards, one for the Hillary Clinton investigation and one for Donald Trump? Why did they put off some of the investigative things on Hillary Clinton, but yet were full force against Donald Trump? Why were some of the investigative issues brought up and actually changed to create a different scope? So those questions, I have over 120 questions, well prepared. I think you'll find Jim Jordan and I have been following this from day one, and you'll find some new information that comes out from the House today.
And Peter Strzok said he didn't need a subpoena, but you're going to subpoena to go see him. He could be up there as soon as next week. One of the things you told our producers is, why is Peter Strzok still at the White House? Why is Andy McCabe fired days before? And why does Peter Strzok still have a job? Have you heard an explanation for that?
Well, there is no explanation for it. Even if we got one from DOJ and FBI, there wouldn't be a good explanation when you've seen as much information as I have. And even this IG report, which is very damning, it's time for Peter Strzok to go home, and it's time for transparency at DOJ. Hopefully we'll get that this week.
All right. Good luck in your meeting. Good luck with your legislation. It is an intense time in Washington. Mark Meadows, thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Straight ahead, as Congressman Meadows just explained, lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are fighting over how to solve the immigration crisis. Is there a solution we can all agree on? We have a huge panel, a prestigious one, back to discuss in the same outfits as earlier. Plus, Richard Painter just unveiled his first Senate campaign ad, and it's setting some of the internet on fire.
There is an inferno raging in Washington.
Has been proposing real immigration reform that will close illegal loopholes, that will end these family separations, that would ensure that we secure our border. We are simply enforcing the law, and that law is, if you come in as an illegal adult, you will be prosecuted as a criminal.
The immigration debate reaching a boiling point as outrage mounts over family separation at our border. President Trump heading to the Hill today ahead of crucial House votes on immigration bills. So how can we find common ground? We are back again with our panel. Thank you all for being here. I want to see a show of hands. Who wants to make sure that these parents and their children do stay together? All of you, five of you. You don't feel that way. Sitting on the front row is Wendy Hartling. You lost your daughter. Mm-hmm. She was 25 years old 3 years ago. The anniversary was 4 days ago.
Yep.
And we talk about these families being separated, but you're separated from your daughter forever. What happened?
She was a great girl. She was stabbed 15 times by an acquaintance and then shoved in a closet, and for no reason. There was no reason.
And this was an illegal immigrant deported 3 times?
He was supposed to be deported 3 times. He had spent 17 years in jail for attempted murder. He got acquitted for murder of the boy, and he got attempted murder for the girlfriend. And one of his cellmates told during the trial, said that he said, I got away with it before, I'm going to get away with it again.
So why don't you want families reunited, the kids reunited with parents?
That's not really what I mean. I don't want to see them separated, but if they do it the right way, they wouldn't have to be separated.
Right.
That's what of course, it makes me very sad to see those children in those refugee camps or whatever you call them.
Of course.
But there's a right way to do it.
Okay. Chuck, sitting behind you. Chuck, your grandparents were immigrants to this country. You're a Democratic strategist. You're from Texas. You see Ted Cruz. He wants to reunite these families and make sure that the parents and the kids are together. We had one guest on earlier who is who's the director of ICE, Mr. Honan, and he said that it's the parents' fault. Do you agree with that?
I don't. I think a lot of these parents are coming here trying to save their children. They're coming from war-torn areas, and they see us as a beacon of hope. Sure, everybody would love for them to do it the right way, in quotation, but they're showing up trying to save their kids' lives. They want to be here to try to seek refugee status. And I see Ted Cruz as somebody who's worried about re-election happening in 6 months, and Beto O'Rourke giving him a race of his life. So, again, turning it into politics. But we've been waiting for Ted Cruz to fix this problem for a long time. And Republicans control the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the White House. The Democrats ain't in control of nothing, so don't put this on the Democrats.
Well, Chuck, Chuck, I think we all have a heart for the kids, but we heard the president earlier saying that these folks could be murderers. Some of them are. Some of them, you know firsthand. Some of them are thieves, he said. So, Patrick, I'll go to you because you live in Long Island, Nassau County Police Commissioner, where those girls were brutally murdered by MS-13, young teenagers walking home, and their parents couldn't even barely recognize their girls because they were attacked with a machete. So why are these laws so important to you?
The immigration, when it's not an immigration issue as it is so much an MS-13 issue. When we look at Nassau County, there's about 500 MS-13 members, 250 are active. And then you go out to Suffolk County, there's other larger numbers. The problem is that when you have these kids like the unaccompanied minors and they drop them into these homes, I understand that they're trying to protect these children, but what they're not doing is including us in the process. If we were there, we would vet the homes out to make sure that the kids there, the homes that putting these kids into are safe homes, and then we can also monitor their care to make sure that they're taken care of and not pulled into the gangs.
All right. Michael Wilds is sitting behind you, immigration attorney. You represent Melania Trump. You helped her get into this country, her parents and her sister as well. So what exactly does happen to these kids? How do we ensure that they're safe until they're reunited with their parents? And when are they reunited?
So first, thank you for having me. The inhumanity of what we're seeing and separating goes against the very ethos of our founding documents and fathers. Children are separated because this president has decided that he's going to hold the letter of the law. He's going to put people first into the federal criminal system. When a parent is introduced to the federal criminal system, by certain consent decrees, children have to then be placed in the Health and Human Service Division, and they're quarantined until the parents come out. If they're given a credible fear interview for asylum, if they have remedies, if they've re-entered the United States after being deported, there are different kinds of dispositions. In the end, it's really a matter of priorities. When our founding fathers fought the pirates on the high seas, we didn't lose the moral compass of what it is to be America. When we're dealing with this challenge, we should not be quarantining our children from parents. The inhumanity of what we see is reminiscent of detention centers, of Nazi Germany, of the slave trade. We can do better when we try to figure out this problem. And let's not forget, this problem needs to be fixed because the greatest risk takers and the greatest entrepreneurs historically have been immigrants in this country.
David, Fox News contributor, you're shaking your head. We heard Michael Hayden.
I am offended.
Okay.
Okay, Michael, you actually sat here and pulled the Michael Hayden, Birkenau, other comments about concentration camps, Auschwitz, Mogilev, and then go to the slave trade? Well, really? This is the problem that we have. The Democrats, largely, Republicans to blame in their own part, play the emotion, the over-the-top, and the hyperbole game and draw this rather than talking about how we solve. This is a facet of a much larger issue. And this is where you choose to go with it on national television. It's disgusting, frankly. Let's talk about solutions when you're ready, Ainsley.
All right, let's go to Jose, who's sitting in front of you. Jose Magana Salgado. He's a DACA recipient and a managing policy attorney. Congratulations. What a degree. That's wonderful. As a DACA recipient, too. My gosh, you're great. President had a plan for DACA, and it didn't pass. And Democrats, he says, obstructed. Do you agree with that? And what is the solution?
You know, I think President Trump has his heart in the right place and wants a solution. 76% of the American public, including 63% of Republicans, want a roadmap to citizenship for dreamers. But we don't want that at the expense of family immigration. You know, President Trump campaigned as being pro-legal immigration. He wanted to build a big, beautiful wall at our nation's border. But the legislation in Congress right now would drastically reduce family immigration. Both the panelists next to me are byproducts of family immigration. We were actually talking about that earlier. And I want people like them to be able to continue to come to this country and make America great.
I'm wondering why these families are knowing that they're going to be separated, that is a possibility if they get caught, why they're going that way instead of the right way and going through and seeking asylum. You want to answer that, Michael?
Of course. And again, the visual is what really offends me, David. The truth is that people have options, but the broken laws that we have are so dated. To get asylum or refugee status, you have to go through the UN. It will take you years to go through that process. And it doesn't license somebody to come to our border and come in illegally. But the truth is the circumstances have not improved. Look, if people resettle in neighboring countries from El Salvador, Guatemala, if they go to Mexico rather than the United States, there are arguments that the United States should be working with other neighboring countries to avert the families coming on U.S. soil. But the process we have, whether it's employment-based immigration, whether it's investment-based, or just your usual family migration, takes years. They call it chain migration, but really the beautiful concept of family reunification, it could take 15 years for somebody to come to the United States through the lawful process. I'm not saying that the unlawful process is a short circuit, but our laws are dated. Even President Reagan, rest his soul, years ago gave amnesty to 3 million people that were unlawfully present in the United States. We're well beyond 12 million, and we have to fix this. Our homeland is at risk because of those 12 million people that are in the United States as well if we don't get this right.
All right, Commissioner, I'll give you the last word. What's your advice to everyone at Capitol Hill that's making a decision this week or next week?
Politics aside, we got to remember there's good communities out there. When we look at MS-13, they're a violent group. They're a very small percentage of our communities. We have good, thriving communities, especially the Hispanic community growing in Long Island. And we got to remember that it's more than just the laws and strict interpretation. We have to look at these families for what they are. And a lot of them are good, hardworking people.
Chuck, David, Michael, Wendy, Jose, and Patrick, thank you so much for being with us. Well, today is June. What is today's date? 10th? Oh, this says Juneteenth. It is a holiday that most people have never heard of. Maybe that's why I'm asking the question. But our next guest is
playing video games can be just as addictive as drugs and gambling. The World Health Organization now classifying gaming disorder as a mental health condition. It can affect a person's sleeping pattern, diet, and even their job performance. No more than 3% of all gamers are believed to be affected. And the former George W. Bush ethics czar Richard Painter is running for Senate. And let's just say his first ad is blowing up the internet.
There is an inferno raging in Washington. But here in the land of 10,000 lakes, we know how to put out a fire.
The longtime Republican now seeking a Minnesota Senate seat as a Democrat. Steve?
All right, Jillian, thank you. Today marks the 153rd Juneteenth Day, commemorating the day Southern slaves were informed of their emancipation. And in his FoxNews.com op-ed, our next guest explains the importance of the day. However, it's a holiday most of Americans have never heard of. Here with more is writer and commentator Jeremy Hunt, joins us from his house. Jeremy, good morning to you.
Good morning. Great to be on with you.
Great to have you as well. So what is Juneteenth to you?
Yeah. Well, really, today's an opportunity to reflect on the past, reflect on the struggle, and also to recommit ourselves to those values, those American values that have brought us to where we are today. Liberty, justice, equality. Those are the values that have propelled us forward as a nation. And the great thing about Juneteenth is we can think about the past and think about the great contributions of the abolitionists that came before us, the great Frederick Douglass, who we're celebrating his bicentennial this year. And we think about their contributions, and we also think about today and where we as a country might be still in friction with some of those values that we espouse. And so it's a very important day, and it's also a day for celebration.
So when you talk about how we today might, be at loggerheads with some of the things that happened in the past, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Well, for starters, as I mentioned in the article, there is still modern slavery going on around the world, and even in our own country. Just a couple weeks ago, near my hometown, 160 children, one as young as 3 years old, was rescued from sex trafficking. And so, I definitely applaud the FBI for that sting, for arresting those people that were trafficking children. But it reminds us that there's still evil even in our own country. And so it's so important that we remember those values, remember our American values, and we seek to make ourselves a better society. But I am thankful that we are in a much better country today than we were 153 years ago. And it's because of our values that we are where we are today. And so that's why it's so important to recommit ourselves, especially on this day and every day.
I like the summary line in your op-ed at FoxNews.com. So let this Juneteenth be a reminder of who we are as a country. Let it address the areas where we fall short, and let it be a celebration of the values and ideals that open the doors to the American dream to a people long locked out.
Exactly. And so that is what we as a country should strive to do. We've always talked about to be that city on a hill, and I believe in our nation. I believe that the best is yet to come, but it's important that we keep on having that dialogue and have those discussions about what are the policies, what are the things that we can do as a country to make ourselves a better nation. But I'm so happy to be in the great United States, and we know that our exceptionalism comes from our values.
There you go. If you would like to read his op-ed on Juneteenth, it's great. Go to foxnews.com. Jeremy Hunt, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. Great to be on with you.
All right. All right, next up, it is one of the top places to go for summer fun. We are live at Legoland on the West Coast. Good morning, Meredith. She's coming up next. But first, let's check in with Bill Hemmer for what's coming up at the top of the hour.
That looks like fun, huh?
It does.
Legoland. Morning, Steve.
Morning.
The man who investigated the FBI for a year is about to answer questions about what he found. This could be must-see TV on the Russia matter. You'll see it live. What to do about immigration? You know, the issue is red hot. The president goes to the Hill today. Tariffs are growing larger. Markets don't like it. What do we do today with the Dow? We'll watch that. And how is the tax plan selling to Americans 5 months before an election? We'll find out today. And
keep those kids busy and not bugging you.
We've all been there, right? Joining us live from Legoland in California is our toy expert, Meredith Sinclair. We are all jealous of you right now, Meredith.
Oh my gosh, it's a gorgeous day here. Like you said, I'm at Legoland California Resort, and I'll tell you, I got the biggest treat yesterday because I got to see a sneak peek of their brand new ride. It is the Lego City Deep Sea Adventure Submarine Ride. Check this out. You get into the submarine and you are transported into an ocean habitat where you're going to see like 2,000 different types of sea life, including rays and sharks. It's actually so stunning. It's a really beautiful ride. I think parents and kids are going to love it. Plus, it's also really interactive, which I love. There's a where kids can look for treasures as they go, and when they find them, so it's really fun for kids to check out all the different life. And not only are they sea life, of course, it's Legoland, so there's Lego octopi and Lego deep sea divers, so lots to see. It's actually so gorgeous. And I also got to stay at the new Castle Hotel last night. You literally feel like you're in a Lego castle staying in these rooms. My room was a dragon theme, had Legos for kids to play with. We had a dragon on the wall. It's super fun. All kinds of activities for kids, and it's right off the main entrance, which is really cool because they can just walk right in and enjoy all the attractions and even the water park. So speaking of water, kids love water in the summer, and we want to make sure it's really safe for them. So I want to show you this really cool new product from Swimways. This is their baby infant spring float. What's great, it's got really cool features, like it's got a 3-point harness so it keeps babies nice and safe. It's got a sunshade to protect them from the sun. Plus, it has really great handles on it so parents can keep it nice and sturdy. So that's great for your littlest swimmers. They're going to love that. And then we also want to get kids outside playing. I'm a big proponent of that, right? So my next 3 products are going to help you do that. The first one is the American Ninja Warrior obstacle course. What's great is this set comes with 33 different components, hopping bags and balls to jump on, and even chalk to make your own course. I love that kids are going to create their own courses over and over again, keep them really busy all summer. And then I've got another one. You're going to love this. I think kids and their parents are going to totally dig this. This is from Duncan. These are flyers, and you just flip them on, and then you give them a little bit of a shake, and they take off. They can fly all the way length of a football field. They even have an automatic turn on that, you know, makes it really simple. You can charge it up to 20 minutes and then it flies for a whole hour. And then next, oh my gosh, kids love slime. Slime is still super, you know, popular with kids. This is the Nickelodeon Slime Drencher. Check this out. You literally make your slime and then you put it in the slime, the automatic slime drencher, and then you're gonna play this fun game of hot potato.
Oh, that's cool.
Now,
That's
normally
great.
in hot potato, you know, you lose. When it slimes, you're the winner, and there's all the slime.
There you
Kids
go.
love
All right.
slime.
Meredith
And then last but not least,
Legoland, been there. It's great. Kids love it.
And some great ideas for toys. Thank